In today's episode, we are going over 7 missing person cases that park rangers had to deal with, and some that were very controversial. One case, it is believed that something supernatural is involved. So grab your favorite drink, and if you think my content is groovy, let me know by hitting the like button, and you should also subscribe too because I release strange and weird encounters at national and state parks every single day. In 2020, Holly COURTIER, a California mother and self-described as a free spirit, entered the Zion National Park in Utah without her phone and without telling anyone where she was going. Holly was missing for 12 days, lost in the park. During the search for Holly, her family had been asking for online tips, sightings, or any other information that would lead to Holly's return. When she was finally located, nearly 2 weeks after entering the park, with nothing but some clothing, boots, and a hammock. Before she had gone to the park, her family cited odd behavior. She was unusually emotional and said goodbye to her loved ones as if she would not see them for a long time. The search finally concluded after 12 days of Holly having been lost in the park. She returned nearly starving, suffering from injuries, kidney failure, and a concussion. She was then rushed to receive medical care. While this should have been the end of the story, it was only the beginning. Due to a sheriff making a comment about Holly's story not adding up, the family began receiving hate mail, death threats, and accusations that their fundraiser was a hoax. The family eventually needed to close their social media accounts and get new phone numbers. Holly's sister Jamie came out to explain how the backlash had negatively affected their family. They had just wanted help finding their beloved Holly, and were now facing nothing but adversity and hate. After her return, Holly said that she had been looking for a true retreat, to be alone and to connect with nature, and to read her Bible. She was looking for a full disconnect and spiritual journey, and ended up fighting for her life. Apparently, she had exhausted herself on her first day, and later hit her head. Holly herself guessed that she was able to survive because she fasted regularly. While concussed and delirious, she had been wetting her mouth with water from a nearby river, which was contaminated with bacteria. She had even seen some people searching, presumably for her, but she couldn't yell due to extreme dehydration. Finally, Holly was found and is said to have survived only because she had found a water source and enough wherewithal not to drink the river water. The story had a happy-ish ending, but still remains an oddity, specifically due to Holly being able to survive so long without drinking water, and to the treatment the family received during the search, and especially after Holly was found. The GoFundMe set up by Holly's family raised over $12,000 and saw extreme backlash the second that Holly's story was questioned, despite her terrible physical condition upon discovery. Some of the controversy may have come from statements made about her actual rescue. There are mixed reports, with some people reporting she could barely walk. Others stated she was found sound of mind and body and walked out of the park on her own capabilities. And others cite that she was in a terrible condition and transported directly to the hospital emergency room where she was treated for many injuries, including kidney trouble, dehydration, and exhaustion. Those who heard conflicting information began hatching conspiracy theories and accusing the family of foul play, just to invent a GoFundMe with no backing. The conspiracy got so large that a Facebook group was created for people to discuss what actually happened to Holly. The family stands by their efforts and say that the national attention is the only reason Holly has been found and subsequently survived. PAULA WELDEN was, as far as her family and friends have said about her, a regular college student. She went to Bennington University, living on campus during the school year. She was interested in the arts, music, and botany. Her classmates would describe her as a typical young woman. However, in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Welden seemed depressed and had not returned home for Thanksgiving that year. According to her roommate at the time, on December 1st, 1946, Paula decided she wanted a break from studying and decided to go for a long walk in Bennington State Park. This is on the Vermont Long Trail. Paula hitchhiked to her destination around 2:45 p.m. It was said that she was not wearing weather-appropriate clothing for December in Vermont. At 4 p.m., Paula spoke with a witness, Ernest Whitman, on the trail, asking for its total distance. This is the last time anyone ever saw Paula or heard from her again. Paula was the second person to go missing on this trail between 1945 and 1950. Some have deemed this spot as the Bennington Triangle and believe there is a Bigfoot or werewolf-like creature in these woods. History dating as far back as Native Americans on this part of land describe it as being cursed and filled with wild, hairy men. Throughout the years, there have been other strange sightings near this trail, including UFOs and unexplained lights. The Monday following, when Paula did not show up to classes, the school contacted Paula's father. It is unknown why Paula's roommate did not come forward over the weekend as to her roommate's absence. However, because there were no protocols set in place for this situation, there was no official search at the time of her disappearance. On December 5th, finally, the search began. Locals, students, and even Boy Scouts all searched the long Vermont Trail, and a destination that Paula had been remembered as wanting to visit, Everett Cave on Mount Anthony. There was also a local cab driver who picked up a young woman headed to the bus station on December 1st, but could not say for sure if it was Paula. Authorities followed up at the bus station, and staff was unable to say for sure if Paula had come through that night. Both the cab driver and the bus station staff apologized and explained having busy nights, and were not able to remember if it was actually Paula that they had seen. If Paula had gotten on a bus, she could have ended up anywhere. There have been many theories and speculations about what happened to Paula, but the fact remains that the last place she was seen was on the trail. No one has ever been able to definitively place Paula anywhere after Ernest Whitman at 4 p.m. on December 1st. The state of Vermont has responded to this incident by creating a team of authorities who would search for the missing people in the trails, parks, and mountains in the local area. Alfred, just 4 years old, was one of the first to disappear in the Rocky Mountain National Park. He was visiting the park over the 4th of July weekend in 1938. He was last seen with his father swimming in the river nearby their campsite in the park. He had reportedly gone a bit downriver to a family friend's campsite. When the group was on their way back to camp, Alfred fell behind. When they all reconvened, Alfred was missing. A search began immediately, but Alfred was never seen again. Some unconfirmed sightings of Alfred, including a boy matching his description, was seen walking down the said trail with a man holding hands. The search lasted 10 days, and at its most robust, had over 150 people searching. By the 10th day, the search had reduced just to a dozen people. Alfred was never seen again, and park rangers ultimately recorded his disappearance as a drowning incident. After 5 months, the family received a ransom note requesting $500 for Alfred's return. The police investigated and found that it was not a real ransom note. Alfred's father gave up hope and was said to believe that his son was abducted, not having drowned. In 1966, 6-year-old Larry Jeffrey, along with his stepbrothers, were hiking on Mount Charleston in Humboldt National Forest. This is just outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. When the siblings reached the peak, they noticed their 6-year-old Larry was not with them and must have wandered away. Due to the extreme danger a 6-year-old would be facing, stranded on a mountaintop, the National Guard and bloodhounds were soon searching the mountain. Up to 1,000 people had been searching at the height of the emergency, but even after 16 days of searching, not a trace of the boy was found. Searchers reported finding evidence that Larry had been foraging in the wilderness, but the trail continuously went cold at random intervals. It was never suspected that Larry had been abducted, since no one else was seemingly on the mountain at that time. And obviously, an abduction by a car would not have been possible. One authority figure involved in the search noted to the media that the boy walked into oblivion. Mitchell was visiting Mesa National Park in Colorado with his family in the summer of 2013. He was accompanied by his wife, his parents, at this park. On Sunday, June 9th, Mitchell went for a hike, citing a location less than a mile away. His parents and wife were not physically able to make the hike with him, but Mitchell, who often went by his middle name Dale, was an experienced hiker, and his family was not worried. This would be the last time the family ever saw Dale alive. He had been on his way to see an ancient and breathtaking historic site of the Spruce Tree Cliff Lookout. This area is significant, infamous for the Basket Maker Society in about 1000 BC. This ancient civilization remained in this area, as history changed the name of the people as time went on. These people were infamous for their practices of human sacrifice. Dale's wife described her husband as not having a great sense of direction, and that he had set out without supplies or water. It is possible that he had accidentally gone down the wrong trail. Connected to the trail that he was following was another, more dangerous trail, the Petroglyph Point Trail, home to drop-offs and steep inclines. Anyone in the summer heat without water or a map could potentially make this mistake. A search with bloodhounds was conducted to no avail. It is assumed that Dale had wandered off the trail accidentally. Because his destination was close by, the family reported him missing as soon as they realized he should have come back. Park rangers searched the trail and the site he had been traveling to and found nothing. They asked the family to wait in case Dale had gone down a different trail. When several more hours passed, the family informed the park rangers that he had not returned. But they said he had not been in distress nor asked for help. He was not located and they didn't find any remains until 2020, by the way of an anonymous tip. His remains were located only a few miles away from where he started. This story remains popular since there is so little information in the suspicious nature of his disappearance. To this day, no one knows what happened to him, but the autopsy performed did show signs of foul play. In 1971, Douglas Legg was a young boy of 8 years old, whose family owned a cabin on the Adirondack Forest Preserve. While on a hike, Douglas's uncle noticed poison ivy and asked the boy to return home to put on long pants. They were not far from the cabin, and Douglas's family called him a mini woodsman due to his outdoorsy tendencies, and he was reported to have known the woods he was in very well. However, the boy did not make it home for a clothing change. The last anyone saw of him was a cousin and a brother who saw him on his way back to the cabin, but no one has seen him since. Douglas's mother was related to the family that had originally established the Santanoni Estate residential area, where the family's cabin was located. The cabin had been in Douglas's family for generations, and he had basically grown up in those woods during family summer vacations. The half-mile way from the trail back to the house was nothing for this boy in such an outdoorsy family, who had grown up learning about the outdoors, how to safely hike in the woods, and had a keen sense of direction. This disappearance sparked an enormous and thorough search, with up to 600 people searching the woods at the time. Nearby Newcomb Lake was searched, with no sign of the boy having drowned. Bloodhounds were used in this search, and they caught Douglas's scent and dragged handlers over 30 miles through very rough terrain. Handlers and authorities were doubtful that a boy so young could have made it all that way. Not to mention, he was not found by the dogs. It was speculated that perhaps a bear had gotten him and dragged him, but bears are not known to do so for upwards of 30 miles. During the height of the search, the United States Air Force was involved, using heat detecting techniques, and helicopters began searching from the skies. As the search continued, cold weather started to set in, and volunteers and authorities began to search for a body. At one point, another bloodhound caught Douglas's scent again, but it led to a pond. The pond was dragged and searched like the lake. As the search went on, the family began to descend into paranoia along with extreme grief. Some of them started accusing each other of foul play. Although none of these accusations ever went anywhere, after 6 weeks the search was called off. Douglas simply vanished without a trace. Since his disappearance, some tips have come through. Once, a mentally ill woman called the police to tell them that a member of her family was responsible for Douglas's death, and that they had dumped his body. This tip was proven false. Another tip came in when a hiker believed that he had stumbled upon human remains. Again, this tip was proven false after they were not consistent with the state of the boy's remains would have been in after so much time had passed. To this day, no one knows what happened to this poor young boy. Matt THOKE, who was 43, went missing in July of 2021 on a hike at Sequoia National Park in California. He had been hiking with a group and separated from them during a multi-day hiking trip. Apparently, THOKE wanted to hike nearby Crescent Meadow, but wished to go alone. THOKE was not seen after he parted ways with his group and set off on his own. He left his backpack behind, and when he didn't come back for it, his group reported him missing. A search and rescue effort was made by the park rangers, local authorities, and search and rescue teams, with dogs and helicopters from the skies. THOKE's body would be found a month later in a spot that was not visible by ground or sky. THOKE is survived by his wife Lisa, who had been hopeful that her husband would have been found in time. Although his body was found in a strange place, it was not too far from where he had disappeared. His body was found in a very technical part of the trail.